Go. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the latest edition of our podcast, An Englishman, an Irishman, and a Load of Bollocks. I hope everybody's well. As ever, I'm Dave, and I am the Englishman, and I am with Paul, who is the Irishman. And together, we will try and touch on some important subjects, but we will also throw in a load of bollocks at times as well. So, Paul, how are you?
Yeah, I'm grand. Yeah, all good. Life is good.
Brilliant.
Summer's here. I'm just poshing around the garden and getting the lawns cut. And yeah, looking forward to the summer, and the kids will be off soon. So yeah, how's life going for you? How's all?
Yeah, all good, Paul. All good. The weather is it's been cool but sunny and really dry for a number of days now. So it's nice, pleasant spring weather. But I'm looking out in the garden and we could actually do with a bit of rain because everything's looking quite arid out there. But yeah, you can't really complain, can you, when you've got the sun shining and, at this time of the year. So it's all good. It's all good.
Maybe it's ironic what we're talking about tonight, but it's that time of the year where there's a lot of weeds. So a lot of people need to be weeded out, don't they?
I like that's a really good entry point into this discussion, Paul. I like that. So just for everybody who's listening, I've not really introduced what we're talking about yet, but Paul has touched on something really important. So we are going to try to discuss how and why what we could call the zombies or the normies, the ones who follow the status quo and who are still trapped in the matrix and who still believe everything that they're told. How are they similar? And what traits are similar with the truther community, the self-styled truther community? Wow. Because myself and Paul have noticed some parallels and some things that don't necessarily sit right with us. So we're going to try and talk about that now, how we've identified those traits, and then you can let us know in the comments whether you agree with us. And maybe let us know as well if you're watching this. Do you consider yourself to be a truther, or do you consider yourself to be someone who's more independent? Do you align yourself with any group orthodoxy at all, or do you really try to cultivate an independent opinion? And we'd love to hear from you. So I'll probably start with you, Paul. So we'll start with. I'm going to start with this question first because I don't know what to call the.
You can hit the nail on the head there. Sorry, Dave, about you said self-styled truthers, and I have even issue with that. It's very grandiose, isn't it? It's very grandiose. It's like, how grandiose is it to call yourself a truther? Because I was only thinking before we were going to talk about this, is what we know and think we know is so minimal, isn't it? When it comes to life, when it comes to human life, the experience of life, the complexity of the lived experience. And the world around us and world events and what we think we know and what we perceive. It's really complicated. And as I said, we're only scratching the surface of what we really know and what we really think. So to have this big grand statement of I'm a truther, it's there. You're nearly there to be brought down when you call yourself a truther like that. You're asking for trouble, aren't you?
Absolutely. There's an arrogance attached to the description of yourself as a truther. And, we've talked a hell of a lot about the I don't know whether the general public, the zombies, the normies, the ones trapped in the matrix, and how they are, why they are, and the shocking behaviour that many of them engaged in, the shocking lack of ability to feel empathy and to have stimulating conversation, to listen, to consider an alternative opinion. And as time's gone on, I think me and you have both kind of gone, hold on a minute. Are we seeing some of these same traits in the truther community? And as you say, the self-styled truther community. So if we had to come up with a stereotype, I'm going to ask you this, Paul. I'm going to put you on the spot now. But what would the stereotype be of a normie, and what would the stereotype be of a truther? And then tell me how they're similar in your opinion.
Well, I'm just going to give my experience of dealing with truthers, and I'm going to speak from the angle of, as I'm talking, I'll be talking about normies as well. And I think I mentioned the idea of how the normies and media and health officials treated the concept of death during COVID, and how the truthers are treating the concept of death. So, like, I would say, truthers, there's a lot of high expressed emotion, isn't there, amongst, you can see it in Telegram groups, high expressed emotion, a lot of sharing information and spewing the same old shit. Oh my God, day in, day out. It's like Groundhog Day. And do you remember the truthers? They're always on about Donald Trump. Donald Trump is going to come and rescue us. And then when you highlight the truthers, that Operation Warp Speed and Donald Trump happily rolled out the vaccines in America, they don't want to know.
No.
The truth is, they're again, that grandiose. Oh, they're experts on Russia now. Everyone's an expert on Russia. And when you highlight to them that maybe there is a thing called Russian propaganda as well, the war isn't going according to plan regarding the Russians either. They haven't made that much ground. They've lost a lot of people as well, soldiers. They don't want to know. They don't want to know. When you're just trying to be realistic and rational, we even point out regarding Russia, Putin, again, he was all on about COVID. He rolled out Russian vaccine as well. They don't want to know. So, they don't want to go there when it comes to certain things. They're very black and white. Likewise, the normies were very all or nothing, black or white thinking, But the issue I had with the truth movement, and I still do, is how they've weaponized deaths recently regarding vaccine-related deaths. And I think it's disgusting. Because what I deplored, what I absolutely found disgusting during COVID, was how the media, and look, this is all ground for us. We've talked about this till kingdom come. How the media, how health officials, how the government twisted and weaponized deaths to push their own agenda and to instill fear. There was no respect for the dying and no respect for the dead. They attribute any type of death to COVID. But the so-called, as you said, Dave, self-appointed, self-styled truthers are just as crass and distasteful when it comes to linking any death to the jabs. It's confirmation bias in overdrive, and it's disgusting. And look, we've talked about excess deaths. We know it's the issue of the day. But Jesus, guys, on the so-called truth side, or awake side, if you want to call that, inverted commas, have some decorum. Show a bit of empathy. Is that saying to the dead, the only thing we owe the dead is we owe them the truth.
Yeah.
Not for their lives to be trampled on. Death is sacred. Have a bit of respect. It shouldn't be used to push one's bloody narrative. I remember there was a woman on Telegram group in the Midlands area, and I thought this was disgusting. The same people who were up in arms when the media and health officials were rolling out deaths attributed to COVID, and they're rolling their eyes and saying that's disgusting, are the same people that, I'm thinking of a woman who, she went to great bother. She obviously got her local newspaper and went to the obituaries, and she obviously got a highlighter, and doesn't matter who it was, she was highlighting died suddenly or short illness. Took a picture of it, a screenshot, put it on social media for the world to see, and was like, oh, look, more sudden deaths. Oh, look, vaccine-related deaths, without knowing any information. And even if you did have inside information, that's just horrible. That's just a disgusting thing to do. So again, there's no sense of empathy, no, as you've mentioned this word before, no sense of introspection, no sense of self-awareness, which works both sides, on the so-called truth movement and on the normies side. These people, Dave, a bit like on the normies who wore their 2 masks, got their 4 jabs. On the truther side, they're fanatics.
Yeah.
They can be full of hate, they're resentful, they can be spiteful. They jump from one bloody topic to another, and they make no progress. They're transient. As I said, they just jump from one thing to another. If you question anything, they get a bit twitchy and arsey with you. A bit like with the normies, if you question them, the world falls apart. How dare you question me? And if we question anyone on our bloody side, if you want to call it our side, that's another question, what is our side? They call you a shill, or you're not awake. They go off on tangents all the time, so they're not focused. I see people on Telegram groups, talking about flat Earth, talking about UFOs. Nonsense. Absolutely chaotic, And I say to these type of people, these truthers, and I'm going to leave with this, is they just live their life wearing cynical, pessimistic, dark tinted glasses. They're always looking at things in a negative way. They need to get the chip off their shoulder, I think. They need to chill out a bit. They maybe need to have a few drinks. Get your rocks off. I don't care. Bloody relax. Don't be so angry and anxious all the time. And I think there's that sense as well. Not everyone's out to get you. don't let kind of your life slip you by. And this us against their mindset. It's not healthy, is it? You know.
Great points, Paul. Great points, and the parallels are striking. You were talking about respect for the dead, and I think we're going to do a separate podcast on how modern Western societies handle and deal with the subject of death, because I think in the last few years we've really seen some disturbing trends. And I find that story that you said about the lady who going through the local newspaper and circling the sudden death, it's mawkish, it's sinister, it's creepy, you know, and it really is. And I genuinely think as well that these people who are doing these kind of things, they can't have been personally affected by somebody who genuinely has died as a result of the jab, because you know, I know somebody. A lot of us know somebody, and I would never dream of acting in that way, because, as you say, there's a sanctity about death, and there should be a lasting respect, and we owe the dead the truth, as you say, and there are the other really striking parallels that I would say that unite both sides, and I think the umbrella reason for this is because there's this atmosphere of pessimism that's over and that encircles Western society, probably for the last few decades, as we kind of degenerate, really. And this pessimism leads to these types of behaviour. So other ways that they're similar are, I feel the truth community can be snapped into action and distracted very, very easy to talk. So to talk about a particular topic and fanatically or obsess about it. So two recent examples where the emergency alert, stupid emergency alert that the UK government tried to inflict on everybody in the UK via the mobile phones. And then a couple of weeks later, the coronation, King Charles' coronation, and for a matter of days around both of those events, nothing else mattered, you know, and that was almost like the way that the normie mindset was manipulated away. Being scared about COVID to we've got to support Russia, and in the summer of 2020 it was the Black Lives Matter thing. Another parallel as well is the constant, you touched on it there, the constant need to immerse themselves in doom and negativity, the unwillingness or complete lack of ability to be able to acknowledge positives. And the other aspect as well, the other trait is that ability to be able to have good quality conversations, to be able to listen and then reflect back. Now, I can guarantee that there will be people there'll be people out there in the truther community who, if they listen to this podcast, would say exactly the things that you've already alluded to. Me and you don't know what we're talking about. We're not awake. You know, we're shills, we're controlled opposition, we're stupid with this, for that. We don't, you know, and the last thing I'd say as well, and this is what I've always been wary of in my life, or tried to, I've always been wary of attachment to group identity. We've talked a lot about that as well. I'm very, very wary as well of a group identity which expects you to conform. If you conform to X, then you have to conform to Y and Z as well. So, you know, so if you believe that the COVID was an operation in control, which I believe it definitely was, right? Then you also have to believe in that man-made climate change is a scam. Now, I actually do believe that man-made climate change is a scam as well. But you also have to believe that the moon landings were faked. You have to believe that you have to believe that Hitler was a good guy in the Second World War. You have to believe that the Titanic was sunk on purpose. Now, I'm sorry, but okay. This is just to finish on this point. This is why I always go back to basics when it comes to what do I know to be true. What I know to be true is what I can see with my eyes and hear with my ears. That's my experience. That's what I know to be true. I know to be true that since March 2020, society degenerated absolutely horrifically, went down a horrendously dark path. It changed people's behaviour, brought out the worst in them, and I was easily able to identify lies Do I know what the truth is? No, I don't know what the truth is at all. And I would never call myself a truther. So if you're going to then ask me to believe that all of these other things, they definitely didn't happen in the way that we were told, but they did happen in the way that the truther community is telling us to. Well, I'm not just going to blindly believe that. No, I'm not. I'm not, especially when I'm only relying on second-hand information, which is why with everything else, I'll have an opinion, and hopefully it'll be an educated opinion, drawing in different, statistics, facts, logic, reason, whatever.
Yeah.
But there's always room for doubt. There's always got to be room for doubt until you can expose a lie. Absolutely. Without any doubt whatsoever, as we did do with many different things to do with the COVID scandemic. So that's where I stand, Paul. Yeah.
Spot on, Dave. And you got me thinking about a couple that I remember. I remember when the pubs reopened. And I remember going into Mullingar to have a pint. It was actually Canton Casey's. People know Mullingar. It's it's one of the oldest pubs in Mullingar. Anyway, I remember Dublin were playing Cork in the GA, and I just quietly got my pint, sat in the corner, and just was quietly watching the match. And there was this couple in their 70s. I'd say they're about in their 70s, sitting beside me. And the husband was looking at the GA, but I could see she was dying to chat. Someone is looking at you. I was right beside her, and I could see she was dying for chat. And she kind of just said, the small talk. She said, "Oh, it's not great. The pubs are back open again." And I said, it is. And I just said, they never should have closed. And you were just doing a small talk. We're probably just gauging each other.
Yeah.
And anyway, they were just telling me they're in Mullingar for the weekend. This is their first weekend away since everything was open. A lovely rural couple. They were farming background. No pretense. Anyways, we got talking about, as John Moore says, the COVID. We talked about the COVID, and they were on the ball. They were spot on. They never wore a mask. They never got the jab, even though she was telling me her daughter was a nurse and always annoying her to get the jab. I said, no, we're not getting it. And they didn't overthink it. They said to me, it was a no-brainer. Our intuition was telling us, and our gut instinct was telling us, our sense of telling us, this is wrong. We're not getting we're not wearing the mask, and we're not getting the jab. And they knew something was off, basically. And they were just and I said, well, why didn't you get it? And for those reasons, their intuition. And then they were telling me that they didn't have any internet, and that they had the old style Nokia 3310 phones. So I got me thinking about, this truth movement, that they weren't online joining Telegram groups, sharing information or looking at countless information. They weren't online listening to some man or woman telling them that the world is fucked. They knew the world was fucked. They went with their intuition. They went with their gut. They just knew because of maybe their lived experience. And I thought they were a brilliant example, Dave, of there was no grand gestures. There was no, if you want to say, paralysis of analysis. They weren't even online. They just knew. There was no fuss. It was just classic, great example of just a lovely couple, peaceful disobedience, peaceful resistance. They just said a big fuck you, a big no to the government. They didn't spend all their days online the way many of us do, including myself. They just cracked on with their life. And they were telling me that during COVID, they were gardening and they're thinking of going to Portugal now. They weren't consumed by it all. And I just thought they know how to do it,
Yeah, I wish you knew who they were, Paul. We'd get them on the podcast. They'd be great.
Well, I'd have to get internet installed for them maybe first.
Yeah, of course, yeah. But that is a perfect example of how the information war has got a lot of people wrapped up in its tentacles. I mean, I've said, I think a lot of us would. Well, whether we'd admit or not, I certainly will. The information wars affected me because I went through a period, in that first year where I was consuming information, trying to learn as much as I could. And I remember, I was probably around about the start of 2021, I started getting this feeling that, man, this isn't really for me. A lot of these Telegram groups, I'm starting to see a lot of repetition. I see positives out there. Why is that never reflected in these groups within the conversation? And why is the information almost exclusively negative and often apocalyptic? And one thing that I have realized, Paul, I remember you saying this ages ago, actually, is I think there we have been in a war with our governments. We've been in a war with Big Pharma. We've been in a war with the deep state. Well, that is absolutely undoubted. Now, who are the ones though? Who are those? Who are the silent ones who've been really, really effective and who have taken on that war, who've taken on those dark forces in the most effective way? Now, I think it's the two people that you talked about in the pub there are two perfect examples. Because what I see online. Again, I'm not in any Telegram groups anymore.
There was no ego with them either.
No ego with them, yeah. Well, that's a big one, isn't it? Is ego? It's like, who can be the first to bring the next bit of bad news, and the repetition and the unwillingness to be able to counter what they are saying. There might be a bit more nuance and complexity about it, but the biggest thing of all, and this is what I wanted to ask you, is there appears to be a real lack of people who understand, and this is just my opinion, that the most effective way to bring down a tyranny and to reimagine a society and to recreate a society or to regenerate a society, along more in line with more positive moral values, is to create and is to converse. I talk about this till I'm blue in the face. But in my opinion, not enough people understand that. But I think that there are people out there that we don't see who do understand that, who realize that they do have, they do have the right to live their own lives, that they don't have to get wrapped up in the information war, that they don't have to be presenting themselves as some kind of authority on the truth, but who creatively and with ingenuity and with spirit carry on with their lives and are a great example to everybody else, if those other people are willing to see them as a good example. Do you see what I mean?
100%. There's a lot of self-sabotage as well, isn't there? It's a movement that eats itself alive, and eats itself up. 100%. And you kind of just got me thinking about, we had a local group, myself and about two others, set up a local group in, you forget the years. It was during the dark days of COVID, so 2021. And I remember we just set up the group, and we'd no set plan, we'd no agenda. We just said, feck it, we'll set up a WhatsApp group and we'll just see where it goes from there. And it literally was just 3 or 4 should we see each other every day, collecting the kids in a WhatsApp group. And anyway, more people joined, and it was good. And we started off with good intentions and with good energy. And we said, what's the next thing we'll do? So we were being, as you were talking about, the importance of being creative, getting outside of the online world and more into reality of our village, our community, parallel society. So I remember local meetups, and this was a time when there was a 5K rule, and we'd meet in someone's garden and just have a chat and talk about the craziness of the world. And we organized walks and get-togethers, and we arranged a few prominent speakers to come to our local hall. We were the first community in Ireland, and I will say that, Collinstown, Westmeath, we got prominent speakers like Stephen Manning down, Dr. Jerry Waters, Dr. Vincent Carroll, Eddie Hobbs came down talking about finance. Not everyone's cup of tea, some of these speakers, but we were getting a conversation going in the community. We had obviously Thomas Sheridan come down to Lough Lane. That was another great evening. So we were just trying our best. But we had 50 people in our group. Half of the most, I would say, only out of those 50, only about 5 to 8 people used to turn up to our speakers, come to our hall. We were literally bringing people to your hall. We're said, you look at these people online, we're physically bringing them to your hall, your local hall, 5-10K away from you, no interest. It was people just constantly being moaning and groaning and doom and gloom and being, as we said, pessimistic, mindless information sharing, preaching to the converted, people ranting all the time, people being cynical, with people who were just emotionally unhinged. So we set up this group with good intentions, and we ended up nearly being bouncers. We ended up having to control the group. People saying, one woman was saying, we need all nurses and doctors should be murdered, should be killed. Come on now, come on. You can't bloody say that. And I was trying to say, I'm a bloody nurse. You can't say all, and you can't say that. Another woman came to one of the meetings that I think was Vincent Carroll, and she just disrupted the meeting. She kept interrupting the speaker, shouting about the Great Reset and about Nuremberg trials, and you're just thinking, why would we try? Why are we doing this to ourselves? Another guy attached himself to the group and tried to promote his business and was very pushy with us to take on his business. his business proposal, you know. So he was looking at from a money angle. Another fella attached himself to the group who was from the other side of the country, and all he did was share his Substack articles. And then he tried to organize an event in the village, but had planned to charge €25 for the event. So real sketchy stuff. And it was just, the goodness was taken out of it. And I just thought to myself, you try and you try and you try, and you'll just get back in the face of people. People will always want more, or they'll always try in their twopence. So kind of my attitude was, nah, do you know what? I'm happy out. I'm happy to be a lone wolf. You know, on reflection, you know, I was happy to step away from the group think. I just thought to myself, it just gets messy, and too many egos and personalities and people with agendas. And, you know, you can see why it can be chaotic.
Yeah, I've had a similar experience as well. I'm only in one group now, one WhatsApp group, and I've met some amazing people in there. And I think one of the...
And there is good people, yeah.
Yeah, I think, but I've met a lot of people on the way who've just similar experiences, you know. They've come and they've gone, and they've not particularly brought much to the party. They've been disruptive, they've had egos. Yeah. One of the hallmarks, I think, of somebody who genuinely does take this role seriously is, are you willing to actually go and physically meet the other people that are allegedly on the same side as you, or are you just going to stay in the shadows, you know, just bringing your negativity? Because if you are, you know, you're fucking useless, you know. Are you willing to do that? Are you willing to actually come, or are you willing to have really, you know, proper good conversations and listen and try and find ways forward? Are you willing to open up, you know? And you mentioned about you've described yourself as a lone wolf, haven't you? And I like that, because I see myself as that as well, as a lone wolf. Although I didn't really realize it was until you said you were a lone wolf. I thought, yeah, I think I am as well, a dissident, you know. How important is it that people cultivate or try to cultivate their own independent opinion in the face of such pressure to conform to certain beliefs? Many of the beliefs, the meta-narratives around the beliefs in what the normies would term the conspiracy movements, which is what we've been involved in, are true. You know, they're true. Do you know what I mean? We're not saying that a lot of what the truthers say is there is not a large element of truth to it. It's just not exclusively true, is it? So how important is it to be able to not only to look at what the mainstream media and deep state is telling us and how they're polluting the minds of the masses, and to discern and to tease out the lies from that? How important is it to be able to do the same with the truther community, and to remain a point of singularity in terms of, well, what is our perception and our idea about the world?
Well, 100%, Dave. And it's funny that you were talking about the idea of being a lone wolf and the importance of being an individual. And because we both experienced being in a group, and then we both experienced stepping out of the group and just doing our own thing, I have never been happier. I've never been happier since I've stepped back from the group thing, you know, and just doing my own thing. And I've kind of come to the conclusion that I don't let COVID or immigration or excess debts or LGBT ideology, whatever, I don't let it consume me, or I don't let it define me. My energy and my priorities are my family, my wife, my kids. It's getting back to nature. It's going for walks. I dip in. I am my own man. I dip in and I dip out. I'm not answerable to anyone. I'm only answerable to my family. You know, and again, that famous Groucho Marx, I refuse to join any club that would have me for a member. And it's so true. Yeah. You know, I like being the idea. I like the idea of being a lone wolf, doing this podcast, writing articles for the light paper when I want and what I want. Quietly putting up. I remember quietly putting up signs at 4 a.m, getting up in Collinstown and putting up signs, and then people going, "What the hell is that?" You know, and just things like writing local letters to local newspaper, just doing my own thing. And I think don't say it, isn't that quote of something like that? Individuality is the true definition of freedom. Be your own man.
Absolutely.
Don't follow the crowd. Don't be a fanboy for anyone. Just think for yourself. Just do
I
your
quite
own
like
thing.
sorry, Paul. I like the idea, actually, the more I think about it, of we all. I think I do. I see myself, and probably this as part of what I call I call it the moral and intellectual counter revolution. But within that, there's so many separate entities that are kind of just operating, and we're there, and we're talking good stuff, with a bit of bollocks thrown in as well. But not that many people know about us. But I quite like the idea that when we're long gone,
Yeah, we're
and
distant.
who are these two guys? Who are these two guys? These two guys were quite interesting, weren't they? Why was no one listening to them? Dave and Paul,
Exactly.
come and have a listen
I wouldn't
to
want.
this.
Yeah,
Come and have a listen to this.
exactly. I wouldn't want, the cult of personality and COVID, on the truth movement that has been developed, both in Ireland and in Britain. There's a lot of cult personalities, and they do the rounds, and they do the rounds on all the different online platforms, and it's the same spiel. And again, you look at the comments, and it's all like, "You're amazing, you're amazing." And there's that fanboy, and I kind of, again, I would be more interested in that couple that I met in the pub. They're more fascinating. They're fascinating. People like that fascinate me. As I said, they didn't have to. They didn't have to elaborate. They didn't have to go through mass formation, mass hypnosis. They didn't have to go into it. They just that real country way of, sure, we fucking knew.
Yeah.
So you'd have to be a fucking idiot not to know that this was all messed up. And it was, again, no pretense. I love it. But as I said, I've never felt more alive just doing my own thing. And the more they took our freedoms away, the more they pushed us. And I'm talking about the government and the health officials. The more they tried to label us this and that. It made me more of an individual. It gave me more sense of self, more purpose. So I think similar to yourself, I'm in that nice stage where I'm not attached to anyone or anything. And as I said, do a bit for the light paper podcast here, but I've got other things going on in my life. I think people need to remember that. Don't waste your bloody life. You've one crack at life. Jesus,
stop looking at Twitter all day and stop looking at Telegram group. I think what was I going to say there, Paul? I've forgotten what I was going to say. Go on, you carry on. Say something else. My mind's gone blank.
No, it's and again, as we were saying, we're just being as honest as we can. We can't be just patting each other on the back and saying we're all great. And the truth movement, that we're on the right side of history and that we're untouchable and we're immune to criticism. No one is immune to criticism, including me and you.
That's what I try and do with we try and do with the podcast, don't we? And we invite comments, and as I say, there'll be people who vehemently disagree with us here, and that's fine. I try to do that with my YouTube channel as well. Is the imperfect individual, and I think I've managed it really is to create a community there where there is good conversation and people aren't. It isn't based around a doctrine. I'm not there looking for their approval. I'm there to learn off my subscribers, and I have learned some amazing stuff. I've met some amazing people. You're
a good example, Dave, to be fair.
Yeah, that's what I try to do.
Brilliant
example. And again, and now that the whole COVID thing has mostly moved on, I look back at it and I say we achieved something incredible there, because it was only a very small number of people who stopped that. The ones who said no to everything. I will not wear a fucking mask, no matter what you do. I won't. Most people in the truther community weren't like that. They dipped in and out of different things, whereas the ones who just quietly went, no, I'm not doing it. I'm not doing. And I look back and go, that was so important now. But things have moved on to the point where, and this is what I'm so passionate about, to the point where, okay, right, we've been under savage psychological attack. Our bodies and minds have been under attack. We've suffered massive losses. Some of us have lost people we love. What now? How do we get that truth and accountability? And how do we go about, as I say, reimagining and reinventing this society along to make it better? How do we do that? We don't do it by continuing to engage in the same behaviours that we were in 2020 and 2021. That ship sailed now. We know what the threats are. We don't need it reinforced every single day. We actually need to take responsibility ourselves in our own ways, in our own local communities, but with a spirit of optimism, not with a spirit of pessimism and with a spirit of bravery and courage, you know, and try and create something. It doesn't matter what it is. We've created something with this podcast. We've created something completely unique with this podcast. People do that, write something, create something, garden, go out and interact with nature, draw something, set up a podcast. So that's been my message. Like, I'm some kind of some kind of leader. I'm not, but I truly and passionately do believe that, Paul. We've got 2.5 minutes left, so I'll leave it to you.
What John Morris said a long time ago, waiting for the cavalry to come, and maybe we are the cavalry. People were all looking for their Winston Churchill, their Michael Collins type figure, and those guys ain't going to come to rescue us. And as you say, we're not asking for any big grand gestures.
No,
we're, you know, sharing information all the time. That was fine in the first March, April 2020. April 2023, like, really, that's an illness. That's an addiction to your phone.
Absolutely, and it's one that we've probably all, you know, that we've probably all suffered from at some point. But to still, as I say, to be at this point, May 2023, and there's still too many people doing that. Yeah, sorry to interrupt you, Paul.
No, and as you said, just create, do anything, you know.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we've got 1 minute and 30 left, right? I'm going to say thanks to you, Paul, as ever. Brilliant, that. Enjoyed it.
Thank you, Dave, as ever.
Yeah, we could probably do a part 2 on this, actually. Thanks to everyone for listening. We would always want to, I know I certainly think this, and I think Paul does as well, to challenge people, challenge their beliefs, to not rest on our laurels. So if you disagree with what we've said here, you need to let us know. Please let us know in the comments. Likewise, if you agree, let us know. Or if you've got something that you think will be of value to anybody else, then leave it in the comments.
We don't bite. Well, we bite a little bit, but it's not a big bite.
We're not too bad, are we? We're not too scary. So we'll be back soon, won't we, Paul? We're going to maybe we'll do a part 2 on this. But we'll have a think, and we'll be back soon. So thanks again, everybody. Paul, thanks. You enjoy the rest of the evening.
Likewise.
All right. Bye-bye, everybody.